and welcome to this week's episode of Staying Sane with Jay and Hussein. I'm Jay, and my partner in crime, Hussein.
Yes.
So
Hi,
let's,
everyone.
hey everybody, so let's
Yeah.
jump right into the news for this week. So
Right.
yesterday, the normally day that we do this, but I was out yesterday. Yesterday was Remembrance Day in Commonwealth countries, and we normally do this show on the Monday. But I would still like to remind our viewers that those of us who live in liberal democracies where atheism can be openly lived, that freedom isn't free, as many atheists living in countries where their lives are in serious danger know. So, just a quick reminder about Remembrance Day and honoring those who sacrifice so that
Right.
we could be free to mock other religions. All right, moving into the first news story. In France, the trial has begun for 8 Islamists charged in the murder of Samuel Paty, the teacher who was beheaded on the street outside his school 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Over 7 weeks, the court will hear how a 13-year-old schoolgirl's lie spun out of control thanks to social media, triggering an international hate campaign and inspiring a lone mission of vengeance from a self-styled defender of Islam. On trial are two men accused of identifying Mr. Paddy as a quote blasphemer over the internet and two friends of the killer who allegedly gave him logistical help and four others who offered support on chat lines. Moving to India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has criticized, quote, the cowardly attempts to intimidate our diplomats in a deepening diplomatic row with Canada. So I think Harif and I, we need to have this out between the two of us.
Yeah.
Modi's comments come after violence broke out at a Hindu temple in the Canadian city of Brampton on Sunday, which Modi called a deliberate attack. Unverified video posted online appeared to show people carrying yellow flags of the Khalistan movement, which demands a separate Sikh homeland in India, clashing with others holding Indian flags. India's foreign ministry said, and I quote, extremists and separatists were behind the violence, calling on the Canadian government to, quote, ensure that all places of worship are protected from such attacks. So sad for me as a
Just
Canadian to see that
yeah.
happening there.
Just before going to the next one, are you aware of the word Hindu phobia being used
No.
lately?
Is that just something that's going
Yeah,
on in
that's
India?
a new word. Yeah, that's a new word that's being coined and getting much attention and much uh, what do you say? People are using it more because they are facing these kind of attacks and call outs against Hindus or Indians in general. And mostly that's being done when it comes to Canada, mostly by the Khalistanis. And when it comes to other places like in UK and all, there are Islamists doing the same thing against other religions, especially Hindu religion, and they are also seeing the same kind of attacks and other atrocities. So there's also a rise in the use of this word, that is Hinduphobia, just like what we saw with Islamophobia. So that's something
So
which
it's
is
base,
gaining
basically
popularity.
basically butthurt Hindus who don't want people criticizing their religion, is what you're saying.
Sorry?
Basically butthurt Hindus who don't criticize my
Yeah.
religion. My feelings are hurt.
Yeah.
So
So,
all
yeah.
religions are deserving of criticism. Sorry, nobody gets a free pass.
It's not about criticizing the religion. That's not the reason why they call us Hinduphobic or not. It's
Right.
about the attacks. The people, they are being targeted for
Yeah,
being
and
Indian or
haven't
being Hindu.
and weren't there BJP Hindu nationalist attacks on Muslim people, for eating beef or having cows or something? I remember reading some
Yeah.
stories over the past few years. So I mean, this goes both ways, right? Like the
Yeah,
Hindus are
yeah,
attacking the
definitely. We,
Muslims.
we should we should have a debate over that, especially when it comes to the international media. That's a totally twisted reporting that happens over there. So obviously there are some incidents of this people getting beaten up for keeping this beef and other things like that, and that's not part of the Hindu religion that they are using it as a reason for beating them up. It's mostly the vigilantism that happens, mostly by the fringe groups who are there, and they are doing this. And when it comes to the BJP, they come in front and stopping them and trying to make the punishments for these kind of mob lynching more stringent, and
Right.
thereby trying to stop that. So if you look at the way the past 3 terms of BJP rule that is going on in this country, in the first instance, that was a high number, and even India was called as Linjistan instead of Hindustan. Yeah. So And come year 2024, you are seeing very less number of such things because the rules are more stringent and people are, or even the governments are intervening, and they are even not any kind of support is there for them to do that. So that's totally different from. It's not the government promoting something or government trying to help them out to beat the Muslims or something like that. That's totally a wrong notion. The As far as I live in this country and my family is still Muslims, and I can clearly say that it's not like every Muslim is targeted and we are living under fear or something like that. That's not the right picture that is being portrayed in the international
But
media.
but the
Yeah.
BJP has been stoking Hindu nationalism, which has been fueling these fundamentalist extremists. So they're
Yeah.
they're stoking
So
nationalism, and then they come in with and try to crack down on the results.
yeah. So this Hindu nationalism, when it comes to play, there are certain things which we need to understand. It's not about Hindu religion is being upheld and some scriptures or some rules in the Hindu text is being imposed or something like that. It's not the way. When I think that this confusion happens because you try to understand when it comes to Hindu nationalism, just like Islamic nationalism, where you are trying to impose the Sharia law. So you or the people around, they usually get confused between, okay, some just like what you see with Sharia law, there are some things in Hindu law that is getting implemented. That's the way how this equation happens, and that's wrong. That's not what it is going on here. So, as per what the Hindu nationalists are saying, there are two versions of them. That is, one is the official bodies who represent the Hindu nationalists, and there are the fringe bodies or the hate mongers and other people. These two are continents apart. And the best part is this: the official Hindu nationalist, the upfront people who are fighting or who are stoking this in reality, they never vouch or they never approve of what these fringe groups or other people do this. They're always trying to stop them. They're always trying to say that this is not what we are going to do. And if there are some political leaders or some people who engage with these kind of people and they create trouble, we are seeing instances where they are kept out of the competition or this election campaigns, and they are not given a second chance for contesting. So this is what we see here. So this is something which we need to really understand. And when it comes to what Hindu nationalism is, I would say it's totally different from what Islamic nationalism is. And in that way, if I would say this, you might even think that I'm okay for Hindu nationalism. No, I'm not saying that I'm okay for that. But this idea of Hindu nationalism, which is getting promoted all over the world, is not what it is in reality, and what is not that what they are doing it here in this place. So we have to clear that off. That's what I would say in this moment.
Okay.
And I think we must have a debate over that with by taking all the individual elements and examining each and every one of them. And obviously, there's a big problem that I see in this. That is, along with whatever ideals that they are coming up with in the name of Hindu nationalism, they are equally giving an importance for the religion. So they are creating a drama out of the religion, including much of its practices and the rituals, giving too much importance to that. And it's a kind of exhibitionism. That's what we are seeing here. And I don't think that's the right thing, because that's in the long term, it's going to affect what the real secularism should be. So that's the biggest problem that we see here. Okay.
I think I've asked you before. I don't remember if maybe you have the numbers in your mind. What do you have a rough approximation of the atheist population in India? Is it growing like it is in other parts of the world, or it's pretty
Definitely.
small? Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, it's very difficult to count the number of atheists in India. You know why? Because you can be an atheist and a Hindu at the same time. That's the biggest
Okay.
problem.
Okay. So
So,
what's a rough percentage of the atheist population that you think?
the total population of India, that's
It's
more
like
than,
1.3 billion. Yeah.
yeah, 1.3, close to that. So, you can just imagine you divide it by four and you assume that you have four members in a family, and you divide the whole number with that, and you can assume that at least one person in a family will be an atheist in India. That's what I would roughly say. So you can
So
count the
about
number.
25% of the population you think is
Mostly,
atheist.
yeah. Roughly,
Okay.
very roughly, I would say that number. but that's not counted, that's not accounted, because atheism or a kind of inclusion for them in the surveys or in the census, that's not, I don't think that's being done here, but there is a column for others where this religion is counted, and it's not about atheists or any agnostics or any other people, but every small religion too is included in that, that bracket. So I think in the future we'll get a clear number. Yeah,
Okay, well, 25% is pretty significant. So, yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
okay. All right. So, back to the news. So, protests have erupted in Israel after Prime Minister Netanyahu fired the country's defense minister, Gallant. Gallant said his removal was due to a disagreement on three issues, including his belief that it is possible to get the remaining hostages back from Gaza if Israel makes, quote, painful concessions, unquote, where it can bear. Protesters were calling for Netanyahu to resign and demanding the new defense minister prioritize a hostage deal. In the recent U.S. election, abortion rights were on the ballot in 10 U.S. states, and the results are that abortion protections were passed in 7 of those states and failed in 3. The abortion protection passed in Arizona, Colorado, Maryland, Montana, Missouri, Nevada, and New York, and failed in Florida, South Dakota, and Nebraska. Moving on to a quite interesting story. The most
So
prominent. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. So do you think that this abortion laws um, will at least get a chance to be upheld this time?
Well, yeah, it's because so Roe v. Wade that the Supreme Court overturned is because that was a federal mandate. So what they're
Hmm.
doing is turning it back to the states, which is why some of the more hyper religious, red states had banned abortion outright or like, really severely limited it. So now, even in some of these red states like Missouri that has, a Republican governor, Missouri voted to put abortion rights back in place. So that
Hmm.
that was one of the main issues with the overturning Roe v. Wade was to kick it back to the states and let the states decide
So
which
do
to
you
do.
think this kind of federalism is affecting the individual rights in a way?
Well, that's kind of the argument, right? That the
Mm.
the federal Civil Rights Act of the 60s was meant to supersede where states were impinging on the rights of minorities, particularly the African Americans. So you see, I mean, the argument, for the U.S. Constitution, for even the Civil War, is all about states' rights. So it's in the US, it's really kind of a balancing act between the individual states and what they can do. Like each state has its own board of education, but at the federal level, you have civil rights issues, you have education standards. So there are nominally at the federal level supposed to be safeguards that
Mm.
protect the rights and make sure that minimum standards are held across every state, that certain states can impinge on rights or education, things like that. So,
Okay. So let's hope that at least more number of states will uh, uphold this abortion laws as an important law,
yeah.
which might affect the people by understanding that. Do you think so? More
Well,
and more states will be moving positive towards
I
that.
I think so. I mean, we've seen the decline, like the Pew survey results that show that the evangelical Christians are no longer the majority. They're below 50% and declining.
Hmm.
So, I mean, they're going to be out of power soon anyway, especially if Trump. My prediction is Trump in this Project 2025. If they start implementing some of their Christian nationalist agenda, there's going to be such a public uproar from the secularists and the non-religious that they're going to get swept out. The Republicans are going to get swept out of power if they start instituting all this Christian nationalist bullshit. So
Hmm.
and trying
Okay.
to restrict rights even more. So the U.S. is
Yeah.
the U.S. is the outlier. If you've ever seen like one of those graphs that the outlier graphs like
Mm-hmm.
education, income, religion, the U.S. is the outlier in terms of GDP and religiosity. Like all the other
Mm.
countries are like up here, for religion, less religiosity, higher GDP, but the U.S. is high GDP and high religiosity, but it's coming down. So
Okay.
that's the demographics in the U.S. are definitely shifting. So, but so okay. So the next story, back to it. So, The most prominent Islamic scholar in Gaza, Professor Daya, issued a rare, powerful fatwa condemning Hamas's 7th October attack on Israel last year. A former dean of the Faculty of Sharia and Law at the Hamas-affiliated Islamic University of Gaza, he is one of the region's most respected religious authorities. And he
Yeah,
published a detailed 6-page document that criticizes Hamas for what he calls, quote, violating Islamic principles governing jihad. For Hamas, the fatwa represents an embarrassing and potentially damaging critique, particularly as the group often justifies its attacks on Israel with religious arguments to garner support from the wider Arab and Muslim communities. Dr. Daya argues that the significant civilian casualties in Gaza, together with the widespread destruction of civilian infrastructure and humanitarian disaster that have followed the October 7th attacks, means that it was in direct contradiction to the teachings of Islam. Hamas, he says, has failed in its obligations of, quote, keeping fighters away from the homes of the defenseless civilians and their shelters and providing security and safety as much as possible in the various aspects of life, security, economic, health, and education, and saving enough supplies for them. So you've got the most senior respected Islamic scholar basically telling Hamas, you're a bunch of, you're a bunch of criminals. So it'll be
yeah.
interesting to see how this plays out on the world stage,
Hmm.
uh, especially if some of their support starts to evaporate.
Yeah, we have already seen a video circulating in a channel 12 or something like that, where the Gazans in the North Gazan region, they are speaking to some media, this media, and they are calling out the Hamas as terrorists and they destroyed us and all such things. So people are now starting to respond or to open up without fear because when the Hamas was there all around, they feared getting shot at their legs or even at their chest, and they even got killed. There are some footages that surfaced last day and week, and so where people Gazans being interrogated by the Hamas officials for doing some kind of what do you say, espionage, okay, that kind of activity for considering that being a country. So now they are opening up because the Hamas has weakened and no such a threat is there anymore. So people are now more and more courageous and coming out and calling out against the atrocities being done by Hamas. And there's a statement or a portion from this article or this fatwa that you just mentioned. I can just read it out. That is, quote, our role model is the Prophet Muhammad, who founded a nation and did not establish political parties that divide the nation. Therefore, parties in Islam are forbidden. This is what is mentioned in that fatwa. So, in the first place, when a person read this or when he listen to just see this fatwa, he might be thinking, okay, this is something against jihad or against such things. This is the first notion that could come to that person or even to another person outside the Islamic belief system. But the reality is that what exactly this fatwa is mentioning is that you shouldn't have fought this war at this point of time. They are not saying that it's completely wrong or it is not to be done, but the timing was wrong. This is the whole idea that you would get when you go through the whole fatwa. So you could have done this, okay, when you were able to protect your own citizens. You were able to provide them the shelter, the food, and other things, and when they are secure, and even if you go for a fighting and if the response is hard upon us, and if that is not going to affect us in the manner that we are seeing it today, this could have been justified. But now it is not justified because this led to more damage on our own part. So in that way, jihad is wrong or jihad went wrong. So this is what he is mentioning in that. And also, he's against Hamas and Islamic Jihad and other parties who are engaging in the modern day politics using this new system called a formation of political parties, which is completely against Islamic teachings. Islam doesn't
Yeah.
allow you to form parties and to
Well,
go for
you
elections
could
or
you
democracy.
could make the case then that he's arguing for a secular government that does not have a religious under or overtones to it. So it almost sounds like that's what he's advocating for is a secular
I,
government that
I didn't.
that's not run by an Islamic party.
No, no, I didn't get that way because if you go
No,
this,
no,
the
but I'm
whole
saying
thing.
you could make that argument. The way he's phrasing it, you could make that argument. Whether that's
No,
what he
I don't think
intended,
so. I don't think
yeah,
so. What he mentions is that this was the wrong time. You did it in a wrong way. So you could have done it better. This is what it is.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
see.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, in Holland, Israeli fans were attacked at a football match. Youths on scooters had crisscrossed the Dutch capital in hit and run attacks on Tel Aviv supporters who were visiting Amsterdam for a Europa League match. Police said 5 people were treated in a hospital and others suffered minor injuries, and at least 62 people have been arrested. And there have been more protests, of which the protesters are claiming for Palestinian rights, and the police are cracking down and they're saying, we can't use this we can't use the threat of weaponizing anti-Semitism to stop us from advocating for Palestinian human rights. So that's ongoing. So we'll watch that story and see how that develops over the next week.
Mm.
In Pakistan, authorities say at least 25 people have been killed after a bomb exploded at a railway station in the Balochistan province. Dozens were injured in the blast, and a separatist militant group, the Balochistan Liberation Army, has claimed it carried out the suicide attack. So, and we've talked about the Balochistan
Yeah.
terrorists in the
Do
past.
you think, yeah, with your experience in living in Pakistan, how do you see this Shia Sunni, that kind of a fighting and their enmity? Why that kind of an enmity is not seen within this Balochistan region? What could be the reason?
I mean, Pakistan is majority Sunni, right? Like if there is,
Yeah.
I don't know the demographics of the Shia
Yeah,
population, but
I
it'd be,
think
be pretty
80,
small.
15, 85, 15%. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be pretty small. I would assume it's mostly in Balochistan because Balochistan borders Iran. So
Yeah.
my guess, without actually checking the numbers, would be they might be the Shia. I didn't see any evidence when I was there. I mean, my whole experience of Pakistan was it was actually a remarkably open country. I mean, yes, you have some religious extremists who protest, like, these mobs that kill people for
Mm.
blaspheming the prophet. When Asia Bibi was released and emigrated to Canada for her safety, I was there for those protests. Um, but the Pakistanis are just like, oh, they're just instigators. Like, the Pakistanis would say, oh, these are like Indian paid, crisis actors that are out there trying to stir up, but I'm thinking,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, that's your internal propaganda. I think you have some true religious crazies in this country, and my guess would be that's the ones who's out there protesting. These aren't Indian paid actors. So I think that's a Pakistani, line.
Yeah.
But in general, I mean, Pakistan was remarkably open. Like you see, women there wearing the hijab is a choice. You see lots of women that don't wear it. Some
Yeah.
are wearing hijab, some are wearing the full burqa. It's very much up to, I guess, the family and the girl's choice. But all the billboards, like for the with female models, they're uncovered. You see, um,
Movies and
eh,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was for what I was expecting, it was a lot more open than I expected. I think you and I have talked about, can't remember if we've talked
Yeah.
about it on the show. From the British colonial era, there is a brewery still operating in Pakistan called
Oh.
Murray's. They make great
Mhm.
rum, great vodka, because there's, technically the Muslims aren't supposed to be buying it, but like for the
Yeah.
Christians and the Hindus, it's available. But it's
Statutory
a really,
warning: alcohol is injurious to health.
yeah. Well, in moderation, right? They say, red wine in
No, no
moderation
safe
is
limit
good for
for
you.
alcohol. That's what we
Yeah,
would say.
yeah. But I mean, I found it to be a very remarkably open, especially because I was moving in professional circles, like with people, with master's degrees who had worked in Europe and the US and, had come back there and retired.
Mm.
So these are the kind of people I'm rubbing elbows with. And because they had lived abroad and they were highly educated, they tend to be much more open-minded, and much more open to like even having conversations with me. Like one guy he actually wanted to host a talk at his house and have me come over and like talk about religion, the history of religion to people. So I mean,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
a lot of the people there were saying like, prior to what's his name, the guy in the 70s, Al-Haq, Muhammad Zia Al-Haq,
Ziaul
he's
Haq,
the
yeah.
one, he's the one who weaponized Islam.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we see this all over the world. Like it's the same thing that Hamas has done, the same thing that the Ayatollahs has done in Iran.
Mm.
When you weaponize religion for your political means, it gets out of hand because let's face it, people are stupid. The hoi polloi are pretty freaking brain dead. And if they're religious and you extreme, what's the word? Not extremize, but you know what I'm saying. Like so they
Mm,
weaponized it. People were saying like prior to that, like Karachi was a really open cosmopolitan city. So and, yeah. I didn't
okay.
see, any other than the protest when Asia Bibi was released. Because
Hmm.
I was actually living a couple of blocks from, I could hear them. I could hear the protesters that
Oh.
were protesting Asia Bibi. And my Pakistani friends like, just stay indoors. If you need some food, order it. Don't go out and get it. So I
Hmm.
could actually hear them a couple of blocks away chanting. So
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, I would agree to some extent what you have told, because it's not about the government that is causing all these problems. It couldn't be. Obviously, there's a large religious fanatics over there who is stirring up issues like the blasphemy laws, using that as a weapon and to chase down the people. So we have some ex-Muslims living in Pakistan and doing all this YouTubing. So I always wonder how on how the holy hell they are able to do that, being in Pakistan, airing from Pakistan. Maybe they are using some VPN or some other means to cover up their identity, but it's not very difficult to identify a person in this world, in this time. So they're still doing
they're,
that. So
they're
only thing
taking a
is,
big risk. So again, my
yeah,
first point about, honor the people who died yesterday on Remembrance Day, because
yeah,
people
that's it.
do die for these kind of freedoms. So it's important to remember, like
Yeah,
if these
we
are
should
if there are people, physically inside Pakistan doing this, like their
doing this.
lives
Yeah.
are in danger, serious
Yeah.
danger. So
Recently, I saw a group on a YouTube channel that is Pakistani ex-Muslim women. Okay, too much specialization. Okay, so that's how they're doing it. And I just went there and I was really wondered to see that. That is, they are only females sitting over there and criticizing Islam from Pakistan, inside Pakistan, that they are doing this. So they are not showing
right.
any face. Yeah, showing not any face over there, but it's all just blank screen. But they're doing that. Yeah,
But
so
it's
completely in
still
Urdu.
dangerous. Like even was it the governor of Punjab was assassinated by his own bodyguard, right?
Yeah.
So it's a danger. It can be a very dangerous place if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person. So I did upset one Muslim once. He pointed out that the whole end times narrative is Islamic. I'm like, no, it's Zoroaster that
Mhm.
predates Islam by like 2,000 years. And he got really pissed off with me. And I'm like, oh shit, am I gonna get my head chopped off? But he took it in
Mm.
stride. So
Yeah, but legends still say Islam is a peaceful religion. That's how it goes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In Switzerland, the prohibition on facial coverings in public spaces, widely known as the burqa ban, will take effect on January 1st, 2025, the government has said. Moving to the UK, a British barrister's horrific and violent abuse of more than 100 children and young men was covered up by the Church of England for decades, according to the conclusion of a damning report. John Smythe is believed to be the most prolific serial abuser to be associated with the Church of England, the long awaited independent review found. Smythe died in 2018 in South Africa, was accused of attacking boys at his home during the 70s and 80s. The report adds, quote, from July 2013, the Church of England knew at the highest level about the abuse that took place in the late 70s and early 80s. John Smythe should have been properly and effectively reported to the police in the UK and to the relevant authorities in South Africa. And obviously that failed to happen. So the Church of England is serious, got some serious reckoning ahead of it.
Mm.
My last two stories. So, Qatar has suspended its work as a mediator in the ceasefire and hostage release talks between Israel and Hamas. Officials have said the country said it would resume its work when Hamas and Israel, quote, show their willingness to negotiate. It comes after senior U.S. officials reportedly said Washington would no longer accept the presence of Hamas representatives in Qatar, accusing the Palestinian group of rejecting fresh proposals for an end to the war. The Qatari Foreign Ministry said Qatar will resume those efforts when the parties show their willingness and seriousness to end the brutal war. And my last story is from today. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Sultan condemned Israel's actions in Gaza as, quote, genocide in some of the harshest public criticism of Israel by a Saudi official since the start of the war. Speaking at a summit of Muslim and Arab leaders, the prince criticized Israel's Israeli attacks on Lebanon and Iran. In a sign of improving ties between rivals Riyadh and Tehran, he warned Israel against launching attacks on Iranian soil. Leaders at the summit also condemned what they described as Israel's, quote, continuous attacks against UN staff and facilities in Gaza. And that takes care of my news for this week. Over to you, Sane.
Yeah. So you mentioned about the Swiss burqa ban to
Yeah.
take effect from January 1, and that's completely in the public places, and they are still free to wear that in religious places or in their private spaces. That's not a big deal now, but it will be fined when you wear that in the public. That's a good thing, I would say. And I think as a person living in India, and we are also seeing such increase in these kind of attires being used for criminal activities in our countries, for um, some of the bank robberies and some planned attacks like that. So very soon, even you will hear such laws being implemented in India. And so I just wanted to make sure that Jason won't say that India or the BJP government is anti-Islamic just for banning this burqa. So just take that as a note. Because even in India, we Muslims forget about that. An ex-Muslim, but we have certain Muslims living here, peaceful Muslims. They are also taking this stance. That's what I'm saying. They also want such things to be implemented because they are also seeing this as a threat, especially when
To their
people
security
misuse
and
this.
safety.
Yeah, it's a public safety concern. So please don't accuse us for being right wing, for being BJP and doing all these things. So it's a safety concern, and we have to support that even if the BJP is doing that. That's what I'm saying. So that's a a slight message. And coming to Iraq, we have this law 188 that is being amended, and to allow people to marry, men to marry even 9-year-old girls. That's the new amendment. I think, yep.
Jesus.
So this was something which I think we mentioned almost a few months ago, where there was a plan for such an amendment, and that was in the discussion in the Iraqi parliament. And now it is being amended, and that's being made into a law. That amendment is almost complete. That's what we see here. So there's some interesting things in this news. That is, the coalition government said the proposed amendment is in line with strict interpretation of Islamic Sharia law, aims to protect young girls. That's the reasoning behind such
Oh,
amendments.
right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, protecting young
So
girls.
little
Okay.
girls should be protected at their under their arms and their wings. I think that's how they see that. So and there are many other countries where child marriage is happening, and there are certain rules for that with parental consent and without consent, and there are varying rules. But this one, that is to marry at 9 with consent, this is something too much extreme, and this is for the first time. And the other countries known for such a lower or the lowest age is Yemen and Afghanistan, where the marriages happen at the same ages. So this is something which is so concerning, and they do all this in the name of the religion. That's what we see here. So yeah, that's from Iraq. And now from Libya, we have another rule, that is Libya going in line with what Iran is doing, that is to reinstate the morality police to enforce society's traditions in the name of religion, that is Islam. And they are coming up with this to enforce the modesty principles. That's what they are saying. The society's traditions and strict women's freedom of movement, and restriction of women's freedom of movement. That is what is being intended in it. So there's no wonder why we see all these rules coming up in Libya, whether it be in Iraq, whether it be in Iran, or any religious countries like this. You can find one foot landing on the rights of a woman. That's what we see as a common factor in all these places. So when it comes to religion and when it comes to rules that is pertaining to the lives of the people, and it's not affecting the both the genders, it's mostly affecting the women, and it is favorable for the men. That's one interesting thing that we are seeing as a common thing. And this is something which all the feminists in the world should realize, especially the Islamic feminists. That's a new word. You might be aware of that. They just vouch for the rights of the chicken in the KFC. That's how they 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 stay there, and that's so interesting. Okay, so now a news is from Bangladesh. That's all members of the Bangladesh Human Rights Commission resign. That's the news from Bangladesh. And there are some other news coming out from there. I think we'll add that in our next episode because there will be more clarity to the picture. That is, Hasina is being,
Still emerging.
yeah, still emerging. And Hasina will, maybe she will come back to Bangladesh, and some things are cooking up there. So right now, this is it. The members of Human Rights Commission resigned on Thursday, 3 months after the interim government took charge. And this commission is known for reporting the crimes during this crackdown, what we saw in the past months. So in their monthly report, the NHRC highlighted a rise in crimes such as mob beatings, rapes, and other offenses in October, the news portal said. So after this, there were some allegations against them, and it's not clear what for exactly what reason that they are resigning. Maybe they might be asked to resign or some other reason. It's not clear, but they have resigned. This is what is coming up from Bangladesh, and this is so concerning because when it comes to a country which was existing as a secular country, and when the religion takes control, the first thing that is getting lost is the accountability factor in front of the international community. Completely a shut door is what is we are seeing here, and that is what is concerning. And this is one reason why when you say that India is a Hindu country or something like that, this is what I always emphasize. That is, even if India becomes a Hindu nationalist country, there will be an open door for the international community to an interface for communicating with this country, and there will be an accountability factor which will be alive. That's what I will always say, because there's no such a threat that we see here. But what we see repeatedly in all these Islamic countries, whether it be in Afghanistan, they are completely walling off all the communications from the external world. Where last time we mentioned about the polio cases increasing, and they are totally silent on the reasons and what their plans are. And so it's not just affecting the people of that country alone, it's spreading to other parts of the world, especially to the neighboring countries. So when India is battling the polio cases, one reason for India to bat that virus in this period of time is because we have these neighboring countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan, where this wild polio virus is still existent. So this is one reason. So if we have to act upon that, if we wish to give them some vaccines, or if we wish to go there and to help them out to eradicate this disease, even that is not possible. Because how can we ensure the lives of the people who are engaging in this humanitarian task of delivering the vaccines? That's not happening. So this is something which makes the whole thing different. Okay, I just wanted to add to that. And finally, one news is from India itself, and this is something from Air India. That's the major airline in India, and they have issued a notification where there will no longer be serving halal certified meals to Hindus and Sikhs anymore. So this issue of halal certification and using that as a norm for everyone to eat, that is a long debate happening over here. And who brought this up is mainly the people behind this halal certification, claiming that halal means pure, non-halal means impure. So this purity argument, that is the puritanism which they brought in, now is firing back, or it got misfired, or it is now giving them a taste of their own medicine. That is what is happening here. So now what they did is the normal meals which will be available on the flights will be non-halal. And if any Muslim requires, or any person who requires a halal meal, they will have to order the special meal. So now they have made it into a specialty thing. Maybe the airline, which is now under the Tata, the group here, the giants here, they are now using this policy, something new in this country, and maybe this could be copied by other
You
airlines
see
as
it.
well.
You see other airlines already doing that. You either get the
Yeah,
regular
we are
meal or when you're
expecting
booking your
that.
ticket, you can book a halal meal or a
Yeah,
kosher meal
yeah,
or a vegetarian meal when you book your ticket. So, other airlines are already doing that.
yeah.
So
In
it's not
India,
it's
it's
not
for
a
the
very
first
new.
time. That's what we are seeing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this. Every Hindus
Yeah.
ate, they grow, and they won the Olympic medals by eating halal meats. But now things are changing. So you can think about how this Hindus are getting radicalized by, or Semitized, I would say, by these kind of religious arguments and this inculcation of religion into every aspect or every wake of human lives. This is something what is damaging, and this is where Islam is a problem in this world. That's what we always try to emphasize. So that completes my part.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So that's it for this week then. Yeah, it's
I have
been
two
so
suggestions for next week. How about having this on Tuesdays? We can test for a few weeks for Tuesday.
okay. Yeah, if you
We'll
want.
try that way. And the another one is we'll try with the vertical mode of this live streaming for the next week onwards.
What do you
Yeah,
mean
there's
by
an option.
vertical?
Vertical. StreamYard is now supporting that vertical streaming, so we can try that.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see
All
how it
right.
goes.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you so much.
thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see everybody next week. Take care and
Yep.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.